So hi everyone and welcome to the virtual fair. This panel discussion will be about innovation in sustainable wine labeling. It will be a panel discussion format with three more people I have here: Fabio from Eurostampa, Chris from Mohawk Paper, and Lee Green from UPM Raffle Attack. I will let them introduce themselves, please. If you can go, Fabio.
Yes. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Fabio Collimedaglia. I've joined Eurostampa 4 years ago, like sales manager in the cosmetic and spirit market. Starting from last September, I changed my position and I'm now responsible for strategic research and innovation.
Thank you. Chris, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Yes, thanks, Vero. Hi, my name is Christopher Harold, and I lead the marketing team at Mohawk. I came to Mohawk 30 years ago this year, and we are fine paper makers in upstate New York.
Thank you. And Lee?
Hello, my name's Lee Green. I'm the wine and spirits segment manager for UPM Raffle Attack in the Americas. I've been in the paper and related industries for 30 years. I've been with Raffle Attack now for almost 14 years, and I'm based in Asheville, North Carolina in the US.
Thank you, Lee. And I'm Veronica Jardel. I'm packaging solution manager for UPM Raffle Attack, and I develop the Latin America region. So I have made some questions in order to begin our topic. The whole meeting will be 40 minutes, so we need to leave some minutes at the end for questions and answers. So let's move on. So Harold, Chris, how do you think renewable materials fit the brand owner's requirement? And if you could define what is needed to make successful products.
Well, thanks for that question. You know, I think that consumers and the brand owners who serve them are looking increasingly for authenticity. And I think that this renewal product that we've introduced, which is made from hemp and straw in this label space with UPM Raffle Attack, I think it's a good expression of that authenticity and, if you will, sort of accessibility. Because the papers themselves are made from rapidly renewable fibers, which carries with it a simple, authentic environmental story. I think the environmental impact of using residual agricultural waste resonates. It's not so complex that you need a decoding ring to understand it. And I think in that way, it appeals to consumers who increasingly have a concern about environmental sustainability, but want to know that their products do that in the most meaningful, substantial way. So by us, we're using fairly high levels of these alternative paper fibers, notably hemp fiber and straw fiber, to actually build the structure of the paper that is the face stock for the label offering. And another side note to that is we've left a fair bit of the character of the input fibers of the hemp, unbleached hemp, and of the straw as it comes from the field. So when you see the label, when you see the paper, it begins to express that character. So in other words, it looks almost like a thin slice of wheat bread. And the bits of unbleached hemp that we put in there give evidence of what it's made from.
Yeah, I saw how it looks like, and it looks really, really nice, the materials. And are those fibers grown in North America?
Well, it's a combination. Thank you for that question as well. Our hemp fiber sourcing is a blend. We are sourcing some of our hemp fibers from Spain, where there's a fairly good supply chain of bleached hemp fiber. So we're taking the stalks from the hemp crop. Those are being processed, including bleaching, so they're quite bright, which allows us to make a fairly bright sheet. But we're also adding unbleached hemp fiber from North America, where the supply chain is much less developed. But blending those two, I think, yields the aesthetics that you noted. And then the straw is entirely North American from the Pacific Northwest in the state of Washington, where there are tens of thousands of acres of wheat farms. And the straw that's left in the field after that harvest is what we are using with a partner pulp company who is taking that residual waste and making pulp for us to make paper.
Great, Chris. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I have a question for you, Lee. Lee, my colleague, how are you?
Hello.
Lee, why have you decided to begin producing label materials with hemp-based paper stock? And do you think this may cause some conflicts with the wine segment packaging?
No, that's a good question. There is a lot of controversy if you read industry newsletters and blogs around, particularly in California, where wineries and cannabis farmers are neighbors, and there's some controversy and conflict there. But the reason that we chose to pursue the hemp fiber is that we'd had repeated inquiries over the last couple of years looking for alternative fibers, and actually hemp specifically has been requested several times. And as Mohawk approached me with their development, was already familiar with their quality and their sustainability story, and so decided to take a look at the paper. And as you just noted, it's a really beautiful product. And so I think the attraction is still there because it is as Chris noted, it's a sustainable product that you can see the authenticity of. And in some of our discussions, he's repeatedly laughed at me. I call it very earthy looking. And those dark fibers that are interspersed in just give it that obvious authenticity. And looking at the wine and spirits segment, there are a lot of infused beverages out there where I think this might have a particular appeal, because you can have a little bit of that full circle effect going on. But then just set all of that aside and just looking for sustainable solutions that will perform, then this renewal line, whether it be the hemp, which we're leading with, or the cotton, which we offer as more of a custom solution at this point, but it's also a truly beautiful sheet. If we're looking for sustainability stories that are easy to see and easy to understand, then I think these offer a great solution.
Me as a designer, I would like to know the grams of the material and if they are a good option.
The grammage on the product is 90 grams. Mohawk offers a wide range of basis weights, but we started with 90 grams, which is a bit of a standard, at least here in the US, for uncoated face stocks.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like Vero may have frozen on us.
Yes.
Vero may be frozen. I know it is winter in Argentina, but
didn't think it was that cold.
Must be really cold, right?
Well, I think I could fill in for Vero. We had talked a little bit about some of the questions that she had developed. If that's okay, I'll step in until she is able to reconnect. Fabio, a question for you.
Yes.
We've seen lots of sustainable substrates in the market, but regarding print techniques, the general sense is that there's not a lot of sustainable options out there. Is there something new related to inks and foils, et cetera, that could be aligned with sustainable packaging?
Yes, I think that we start to work with our customer in order to find some new solution in terms of raw materials, and I think that this was the first right step. Now also we are evaluating with our suppliers and with our partners some other eco-sustainability solution like inks and foil also. Honestly speaking, there are no big news at the moment regarding inks. Some of our suppliers develop water-based inks with bio-based food colorant, but we are at the beginning. We are not seeing very big changes on this way. Regarding the foil, also our suppliers are working on their internal process in order to reduce the waste and in order to find some alternatives in order to recycle it in a different way the liner after the foil application. Some other suppliers are working on the printable metallic ink, like alternative on standard foil. But I think that the first step is again the raw material, like paper or plastic film. And also some suppliers like you, I know that you are developing a lot of new materials in a more sustainable way.
Sorry, my internet was down for a minute, so here I am again. So to recap, Lee, my last question for you was if renewal substrates will give us the possibility for us, me as a designer also, to make like these great embossings and debossings that we love, how grams it has, and if it's possible to do that.
The grammage we're starting with is 90 grams. Mohawk offers a broad range of basis weights, but 90 grams is fairly standard in the Americas for uncoated face sheets.
Okay.
104 gram is pretty popular as well, and that's certainly an option. But we decided to start with sort of the center line, if you will, and the paper is easily workable on press. It has a very nice smooth texture, but it will take embossing and debossing quite well.
Great, great to know, Lee. And Fabio, regarding printing techniques, I have seen lots of sustainable substrates, but regarding the techniques we put, I don't know if you already talked when I was out, if you talked about this, but lots of times brand managers ask me if it's okay to put foil, or if there are any inks aligned with the sustainable way to make some labels.
Yes, I already spoke about that with the before. In general, I think that the raw material is the first step when we approach a new project or a design project in an eco-sustainability way. In terms of inks or foil, some of our suppliers are working on it, but at the moment we don't have any special news. The main topic is try to reduce the impact or try to use, in the case of ink, try to use bio-based, water-based ink instead of the traditional one.
Great, great. Okay, thank you.
And I would comment from a, no problem. I filled in as moderator for you for a minute there.
Good job.
I guess I would comment a little on top of that, I tend to agree with Fabio's comments that it has to start with the substrate, and those efforts have been ongoing for some time. But I think what consumers are going to begin to look for is a little beyond FSC certification, recycled fiber content. Those are certainly important and legitimate, but sometimes that's just a little tiny symbol on a label, and so I think, and to echo what Chris said earlier, the authentic look and feel to sustainability is something that will appeal to consumers. But consumers need to start driving brand owners, frankly, who will then drive Fabio, and Fabio will drive me, and I'll drive Chris to do more and more. So far, there's lots of conversation in the Americas. I'll speak to the US in particular, but there's not a lot of call to action yet. There's a lot of interest. And that's why I'm really excited to be in this partnership with Mohawk, because we have something that hopefully will elicit more interest and actually begin to pull into action.
Thank you, Lee. And Chris, I have a doubt regarding these fibers that are used in hemp and straw, this waste. Before, how was used before it was part of the renewal paper? Did it have some use, or what happens if you don't use it in renewal?
No, that's a very fair question. So, you know, our exploration of alternative fibers really began in a fairly narrow fashion, looking for hemp fibers specifically. And we quickly expanded our view of the world as we became aware of some very interesting alternative fiber sources. And, you know, as a company with a long history of trying to get ahead of the next environmental wave, right? In this case, environmental sustainability. These fibers feel truly sustainable. So, to answer your question directly, hemp fiber, the hurd, the stalks that are left when the flower is picked and the CBD is extracted, right, for CBD products, would have just been waste that would have been tilled under, maybe burned, but it would have been not very useful. It could have been ground up for animal bedding, right? But this is a much more dynamic use where you're using every bit of the plant. And what's important is these are very rapidly growing plants. In as short as 90 days, a hemp crop can be mature and harvested. So that's a truly sustainable fiber source. In terms of straw, I mentioned that we use straw from Columbia Pulp in the state of Washington in the US. And with tens of thousands of acres of wheat, once that wheat is harvested to make flour and grain products, the straw that was left in the field would have been burned, which releases a significant carbon into the air, or it would have been tilled under, which introduces some pretty significant erosion issues. So by taking that residual waste, we're mitigating an environmental issue, and you might say two environmental issues. So, right, so we're basically using rapidly renewable fibers, rapidly growing plants, and using every bit of them by taking the residual waste for paper making. Mind you, not the newest practice. These fibers have been used for centuries in one
for
form
years.
But we're rediscovering it and reintroducing it to, in this case, the wine and spirits market and the packaging market as well.
Great, thanks, Chris. And Fabio, I just wanted to know, in your opinion, what does sustainable material needs to look like for a consumer or brand manager point of view? Because sometimes it happens to me that they are seeking for a sustainable solution, but they just want like some spots on the paper. So how is your approach to teach them what's like the correct way to go with that material or this material?
Well, we try to work every day in innovative and challenging projects, trying to create add value for our customer and also for us. We started in order to create a eco-sustainability database of different materials, and thanks to that, during our workshop or our innovation meeting with the customer, we can share with them the different solutions in terms of materials, but also in terms of printing techniques. And also we develop an internal tool in order to define the carbon footprint of each label that we produce in Eurostampa. And thanks to that, we can help to our customer in order to define the right way in order to get their target, to match their desiderata. And sometimes during the workshop we start like a brainstorming session with them in order to show different materials, different paper solution, and finally working with the customer and also with our suppliers like you, we are able to match their target and achieve the goal. I think that the tool that we developed in Eurostampa can help us and also our customer in order to find every day the less impact carbon footprint solution. And also we are trying to extend this kind of study and involve on the initial brainstorming also other suppliers like glass suppliers and caps suppliers in order to create a full packaging view and not talk only about the label, but also try to enlarge the global scope of eco design aspect.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well done there. And you, as being part Fabio and being in contact with end users, do you receive lots of inquiries asking for sustainable labels, or sometimes they call it ecological labels? Many or not a lot?
In the last few 6 months, yes, a lot of requests, mainly focus on the CO2 impact. They are asking us which is the carbon footprint of this material compared to another one, and also thanks for your help, we can support the customer on this kind of requests.
Mm-hmm. Great. And I have a question here, Lee, for you. Do you usually measure the carbon footprint in the materials you develop, so like to make them better every time?
Yes, we use a tool at Raflatac called life cycle analysis, where we compare a new product to maybe a standard product that's already existing in a market space, and we measure CO2 emissions, water usage, power usage, and try to estimate savings that would be generated by going from material A to material B. And that's something that we look at anytime we're developing something new. And as we're having conversations with a customer who's looking for something that's maybe not purely defined, we can still work towards making estimates along those lines. Even though the paper may not be fully defined as we're working on it, we can find something that's similar and give them some comparisons, so they're making choices that benefit the environment as they're doing something new.
Great. Thank you, Lee. And this service you have mentioned, Label Life, is it something you can offer to customers and end users, this analysis of the label they produce? Yes.
If there's a raw material in question that we don't have parameters for, it might take some time for all the science behind it to be developed so that we have accurate data. We have a fairly big database already, and that's something that we offer to our converter customers and end users at any time. Okay, thank you, Lee. And it's actually it's a really interesting little format that we've developed. It not only gives you numbers, but it actually gives some real world comparisons. So in terms of carbon emissions, it might show how many transatlantic flights that's equivalent to in a year's time, or how many hours you have your lights on in your home, or how many toilet flushes or showers in your home. It's a very real world sort of tool.
So for example, if I'm using X material and I want to use hemp renewal in a label I have, you can tell me maybe the carbon footprint I'm reducing or the energy.
Yes, it would be estimates at this point. We're still developing the specific numbers. So we couldn't offer it with and say that it's concrete data. But yes, we could offer estimates at this time.
Thank you, Lee. So there are no more further questions here. I don't know if you would like to add something else that we are here together.
Well, I think that's an interesting, the carbon footprint question is such it's such an interesting topic. And I think that to set it aside for a moment, I go back to this fiber sourcing. It's so interesting as paper makers who rely pretty heavily on wood fiber from trees, right? For us to find such quality fiber that compared to the growth of an entire tree, now mind you, we source from responsibly managed forests, but something that grows in 90 days is like,
yeah, that's fast.
It's a game changer. Or the annual wheat crop. So that alone, that's where I'm coming back to this transparency and simplicity and the kinds of things that brand owners, I think, are looking that are easy to understand at the shelf, right? Like this thing I'm holding, whether it's a box or a label or both, was made from something that was a plant in the ground 6 months ago, right? That's kind of amazing.
The message. Yes, it's a great message. Well, for the ones who want to have more information about renewal portfolio, you can visit UPM Raflatac stand. And of course, Fabio will be also in Eurostampa booth if you would like to visit also. Fabio or some colleagues will be there to give you more information about sustainable labeling.
For sure, yes, we wait you in our booth.
Thank you very much of being part of this panel discussion. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Fabio and Lee, for being here. And let's meet another time. Thank you very much.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.